Welcome back. You here at Goldberg. Today I want to talk about the lack of realism surrounding the high value male or be a baller lifestyle. This is something that I thought of a few months ago as I was going through a number of Victor Pride's books. Victor Pride, for those of you who don't know, he was this blogger in the manosphere known for extreme motivation and self-improvement. His texts are, for a large part, a waste of your time because they're just kind of cringy. Although Body of a Spartan, I wish he'd made a paperback version. I'd like to have that in the gym. I'm not a fan of ebooks, especially on a phone. It just doesn't work very well. But there's the central idea behind this, especially in the manosphere, but self-improvement in general, is that men need to be chasing this dream lifestyle where they're maxed out in every area. Their time is always being used efficiently. It's something attuned to lift weights, have a six-figure passive income, buy a dildo, spin plates, be conservative. And some of you are going to go, no, go wrong. It's simply aspirational marketing. True, and the problem is, though, we live in the digital age where young men are bombarded on the internet, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, Discord, OnlyFans, with all these indications that they are inadequate and imperfect. Now, a certain degree of insecurity can be useful if it's an impetus to change things about your life that you don't like or you think can be better. But if you're so insecure because you're constantly trying to keep up with the internet, the FOMO, you can get to a point where you overinvest, you overextend, you over-diversify, and you're just burned out and less effective at being, living the life you'd really like to have. So that's what we have to break down in this video, and just seeing how different categories don't always mesh together in the way that these clowns will imply. So you might hear, masculine men should be reading books and expanding their minds. Totally agree. Now, someone who reads, let's say, 4 to 6 books a week on average, usually if it's towards the high end, there's a couple of graphic novels thrown in, but at least 2 or 3 of them are going to be 250 pages to 300-400 pages a week. It really depends on how my schedule goes and how readable the book is. But yes, you can skim a book very quickly, but if you're trying to read and take notes and absorb, unless you have photographic memory, it's going to take time. It's not, oh yeah, just plug in for a few seconds. So that's something that's not easily surmountable. Now, if you go to audiobooks and you say, I can multitask, I'm lifting weights and listening to audiobooks. Well, the problem with that, let's say you're benching, right? You are putting a lot of physical and mental strain on yourself while you're trying to listen and absorb a book. If it's just generic motivational self-improvement like that weirdo Dave Goggins who says an F word all the time, you might be okay. But if you're actually trying to learn something, it's not going to work to multitask in that way. You're not going to have time. Oh, so let me take a note. Oh, shit, it fell on me. It's just not practical or realistic. And then if you go into classes, you got to learn to code. You need to do these IT certs. That has to be time that's blocked out to memorize terms, to listen to lectures, to do the little simulation problems. It's not going to happen just because a little bit of time used here. Fine, all the time you procrastinate, just use it towards it. I mean, seriously, these guys, they always talk about doing the work, but they're very vague. Ask yourself why, because if you start getting into the minutia, it's harder to market, I admit, but a lot of people are going to be scared away if you tell them the truth. So it's easier to sell the idea of being successful than the actual steps to being successful that work for various people who work very hard. Then we get to, you should be lifting weights. And this is an example of a couple of modern day manospherians coming to get your women. In any case, being in the gym. Now, there's different debates on this. The guys I've known who are super jacked, it was 2 hours minimum in the gym a day. Sometimes they'd come back later and do like 2, or rather 3 or 4 hours in addition. You could say that's a bit much, but you're probably looking at hour to hour and a half consistently, depending on what kind of regimen you're on. And if we throw in your commute, any degree of meal prepping, because cooking or buying the food, cooking, and then organizing it takes time. All of that together, it's a pretty significant commitment if you have actual goals. I'm not talking about just lifting weights here and there, just exercising, but actually trying to build some kind of form, some kind of shape, it's going to be involving, and that's fine, right? It's important for your health. The guys who will try to tell you, oh, you only need 20 or 30 minutes are the guys that don't do anything when they go to the gym. They just talk with people or watch TV. Or even worse is when you try to rush a workout. I don't care if it's a machine or it's even on the bench. If you start trying to just jam out the reps because you want to be on schedule, that's a great way to jack up your body very quickly. It's like the dudes that you'll see on the leg machine that they'll just start pounding them out, locking out their knees, snapping them back. Yeah, you're going to jack up your knees or your hips very easily with doing that enough. Even myself, this is one time some months ago, I was actually doing one at home because I got back later, so I didn't go to the regular gym. And I had this bigger kettlebell I was working with. Pulled something because I was going kind of fast, trying to be efficient. I pulled something in my shoulder, my back, and that was just, it didn't show right away, but a few days later it started flaring up. It would just be randomly if you move the right way. It was excruciating. You'd be driving the car and just start cringing, trying to, not lose control of the wheel. So that stuff does happen, and it takes discipline. It takes self-control. If you just try, oh, I've got to get it done quickly because I need to do other aspects of my high-value lifestyle, it's probably not going to work out well in your favor. Just saying. Yeah, I don't know why the Memorial Day thing popped up, but he's talking about day trading in Bitcoin and being homeless. That's what Gandalf has delivered to us. And it's sort of true in the sense that when they tell you stuff like that, the passive six-figure income where you work a couple hours a week, a la Tim Ferriss, or when I was younger, I checked out this book at the library called The Laptop Millionaire and was always pushing that. Yeah, you're running this global business from your keyboard and you work like an hour a day. Sure, you can probably do that outsourcing with a bunch of low-wage Indians and Filipinos, but you have to have the requisite skills to build something, to build a software, to build a product that can be marketed on a large scale. That's why that was Tim Ferriss. I think he went to MIT or Dartmouth, something like that, Princeton. And he was really good at programming, and then he had built some kind of website or software early on, even before he got into the 4-day work week thing. So it's not impossible, but it's going to take time, and you're going to have to a certain extent, specialize. I am in favor of what Heinlein said, don't be a total specialist, but you have to cultivate certain skills which can actually build value over time. You have to put in hours to make money. The idea of this, yeah, everything's just remote, a few hours a day, at a certain point perhaps, but as an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, if you haven't already established that because you're just a genius or whatever, it's going to take time and it's going to take discipline. And most of these gurus don't want to get beyond the generic because they know that a lot of people are just going to be overwhelmed. And so they're just going to back away. But the truth to being successful is you have to do those sorts of things. We can expand this out to when they say, masculine men should be buying real estate and being alpha. Well, let's say you're going to buy real estate. That is an extraordinarily time-consuming process. Strangely enough, the 10 times rule by Grant Cardone, which I was recommended, a lot of people said read it, and I said, this guy claims to have, what, 5,000 or is it 10,000 different properties? And yet his book is all generic schlock, no specifics about how you're supposed to buy real estate whatsoever. When I just bought the house that I'm in 2 years ago, it took me 5 to 6 months just looking for something because it was a competitive market, but it was also, a lot of this stuff was just garbage, or you'd actually go inside, you'd have it inspected, and it would be not worthwhile. So it took us about 5 or 6 months just to find the place, and then another month, month and a half at least to do the paperwork, pay the fees, move in. Then you have to start doing a certain level of maintenance on your own. You have to do lawn care, coordinate with contractors. It's a lot of time, especially as someone who's just starting out. So when these guys claim you can just, oh yeah, by the time you're 30, have 10 to 15 properties that are generating rents, that's going to be a lot of your life spent. You may not have time to be also beast mode in the gym and smashing all the Stacy's concurrently. Maybe some can do that, but it strikes me as a little bit unrealistic. And then you're a landlord unless you hire a property management company, which to start you might not be able to do because you don't have enough cash flow for it potentially. You have to go take care of the lawns, you have to fix problems. A lot of your life is going to be drawn towards that, and it's not always going to be predictable. So if that's what you want, be realistic and pursue it, and stop thinking, oh, I've got to do all these different things. In fact, what I decided to do about a year and a half, 2 years ago was when it came to investments, I moved away from individual stocks. And this was because I found while I could pick them decently well, I don't have time with my job, with working on, let's say, my literary projects and whatnot. I don't have time to really do the appropriate research. And so you end up kind of just picking, oh, I think this will be good. Well, it's too much of a gamble there. In fact, I made the calculation back in like 2014. If I had, instead of investing in a couple of these commodity companies, which were supposed to do well and didn't, if I had invested just in VTI, not only would I not have lost that money that I put in, or a decent chunk of it, aside from fees from the index fund, I would have made like annualized over 20%. So you're talking about like a total of, I think, 210%, something like that. No, I'd have to re-up the calculation, but the total was over 200% from that period going forward, at least before this recent downturn. So you're not losing the money, but you're gaining substantially, and you have less to worry about. This is something that I definitely stress. Sometimes not being all, having anxiety, or like, oh, am I doing enough right now? Should I be in this crypto, that one? Just keeping it simple is better for you, so you can focus on stuff that you actually prefer. Now let's get away from this screen because it's a little bit silly, because it's past, I guess we can say Happy Memorial Day from next year. And so now we get to masculine men should be spinning plates. This is the idea of rotating multiple women at the same time. Now, if you're a really good looking guy, you can go on a dating app and just call them to your house. That's more practical. But a normal average dude that has to go up and talk with them and run game, trademark, this is very involving. You have to talk with them, try to get their number, deal with them ghosting. If you are going to have multiple women, unless they're magically content with you, being in this open relationship where you can do whatever you want, but they're supposedly with you permanently, exclusively. I'm not sure about that. A lot of PUAs, as I've noted before, are big into this. They're big into open relationships, or even like willingly being cucked, because that's the dating market nowadays. It's kind of sad. Point being, it's a lot of emotional time, resources that you are depleting dealing with these problems, interacting with various women. So that's detracting from other aspects of your high value lifestyle. Why do you think most PUAs run businesses that orient around PUA? Because if you're going to spend 5 hours on a Friday evening / night or Saturday, you better be making money. It's not a very good use of your time if it's just for free or just to get laid. So there again, if you're spending all that time, it could be cutting into something else. For myself, I work most days, I think like 4 days a week, I work 10 to 12 hours. And you could say, well, you don't have to work that many. That's true. I could cut back, but then I would be making less money, which the waterfall effect is that you have less for investments, for, if you're investing in property, various things. In fact, some might argue, to the extent I have a high value male lifestyle, I have to work more to have that lifestyle. If I was only making 40K, I might be working less potentially, but I would be working less, but I would also be able to access less. That's typically how it works, at least in the United States, because things are expensive and it's not getting any better, especially with inflation. So you work that long, then I'll typically do some stuff at a cafe, like either a class or reading, research, whatever, writing. Then I'll go to the gym. That's most days. Now, if you were to say I'm going to go out and run game, that would take probably 2 hours in an evening. That would cut into either the gym or cut into the research and whatnot. The research stuff, the writing, contributes to potentially future residual income, right? The passivity thing. You can make money without having to work. So these things have to be balanced and they have to be prioritized. By the way, this is on the basis of me getting 5.5 or 6 hours of sleep a night. So it's not like you say, oh, you're just sleeping too much. You can cut back on that. My point is not that you have to aspire to be average. It's just that being high value, so called for most guys, if you're not from a rich family already, is going to take a lot of work, and you're going to have to decide what matters more. If you want to be the biggest dude in the gym, you're going to have to focus on that primarily. You can still invest, you can still talk to women, but you're not going to be able to do it in the way that they're marketing, most of you, because you're either not going to have enough money, or you're not going to have enough time, or you're just going to be doing too much stuff and unhappy and miserable because you're trying to live according to the Joneses of the internet, when you should really be saying, what do you want out of life? What's going to make you happy? And focus on that, because it's going to matter a lot more. And if you're spending your 20s just trying to chase after what the internet tells you, you get to 30, you get to 40, it's a lot harder to play catch up, especially when it comes to money. So just decide what you want and try to live in a productive and pleasant manner.